Greetings YouTube, Simon here, welcome back to the channel, and got some potentially interesting news for you today, but something to take with a little bit of a pinch of salt. Just before we get to that, I just want to explain that this image here on the Push Square website, I'm going to leave a link by the way to this article we'll be looking at in the video description. This image is not the PS5, as far as I'm aware it's just a fan creation of what the console may look like. It looks awesome. But obviously it's not the PS5, and seeing as how they've got that as their header image, I should probably just point that out. Okay, so a few months ago we spoke about a potential Final Fantasy 16 being in development. There's various rumours, but not just rumours, some evidence as well as to, the unannounced projects that Square are working on, with folks from the Final Fantasy teams previous actually working on some of those projects, including one particular project which could potentially be Final Fantasy 16, and we've seen some potential artwork for it as well. But we haven't heard much about it since, until now. Now, about a week ago, I think it was on 4channel or something, Push Square mentioned here, there was an alleged leak about the PS5, and one of the things that was spoken of there is the fact that at some point over, within a couple of years of the PS5's release, there is going to be Final Fantasy 16. Now, just before we get to the article, I just want to point out, a lot of people think that, no, that definitely can't happen. There will not be a Final Fantasy 16 because of Final Fantasy 7 Remake. Square aren't going to be doing both of those games at the same time, but I actually fundamentally disagree with that. Because we know that Final Fantasy VII Remake is going to be a long project, it's not just one game that's coming out now in April of this year, and that's it, Square are done with it. It's going to be a multi-part release, going to be taking place, for all we know, over the next decade. They have long-term plans for Final Fantasy VII, and at the end of the day, the Final Fantasy franchise still has to move forward. As much as we're all looking forward to the Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I'm as hyped as anyone can be for that game, at the end of the day, it is still a remake of an older game. The franchise still needs newer entries going forward as well. So I think it's perfectly acceptable and to be expected that, as well as the Final Fantasy VII Remake, which is going to be coming out over the next few years, that we're going to still be seeing other games in the series. So I just want to mention that before we move on. But according to this leak then, which, by the way, for about a week or so, nobody's given any credence whatsoever, but that's changed, and I'll explain why in a moment. According to this leak, the PS5 release date is October 2020. Seems a little bit early for me, but maybe it will be. The price is going to be $499, £449, and there's only going to be one model available with some launch titles there. But here's what we're interested in today. So games teased at the PS5 reveal, which is allegedly happening in February, so we'll find out more if this leak's true in just a couple of weeks, really, 5th of February. One of those games, some pretty good games here actually, I wouldn't be surprised to see some of these, even if this leak's more of a guess than anything else, but one of these games is Final Fantasy 16. Now, the reason why this leak was given no credence up until now is because it was just posted on 4chan. Could have been anybody. I could have posted this and just made it up. But here's the thing. One of the things that was put out in this alleged leak is that the slogan for PS5 is going to be, "It's time to play," as you can see here. Now here's the thing. After this leak, literally just yesterday, like a week later after this was posted, the PlayStation Europe Twitter feed updated its description, "It's time to play," perfectly matching what the leak had already announced the slogan for PS5 is going to be. It's only a little bit of evidence, but it's perhaps just hinting that maybe there's more to this leak than just somebody sitting down making it up. Maybe there is actually some knowledge behind it. So there we have it then, guys. That's the potential leak. Final Fantasy 16. We just, this is the thing is as well, this isn't the first we've heard about an alleged development of Final Fantasy 16. As I say, we've been hearing rumours and, we've been seeing alleged pieces of artwork, and Square themselves have been talking about how they've been shifting various developers that have worked on Final Fantasy 15 and other Final Fantasy games, even older Final Fantasy games, around into, working on an unannounced project. And I strongly believe, even if this leak is false and we don't hear anything in February, I do strongly believe that Final Fantasy 16 is being worked on. For no other reason than it's an extremely popular franchise. and there's no reason why Square wouldn't be working on the next entry in the series at this point, especially because Final Fantasy 15 is now, what, 4 or 5 years old. So it is about time that we start hearing about what's coming next. Again, Final Fantasy VII Remake is a given that's going to be going on for the next 5-10 years maybe. What else is the franchise going to be doing in the meantime during that period? So whether this is going to be a single player game or an MMO, I'm absolutely sure it would be a single player game if it's happening, just because we've already got Final Fantasy 14, which is extremely popular, and I just don't see that Square would want to detract from that as an MMO, just in the same way that we haven't seen WoW 2, despite the fact that WoW came out in 2004. Blizzard do not want to compete with their own property, and MMO is a very competitive market. So I'm almost certain it would be a single player game. Probably in the Final Fantasy tradition of, having new lore, new characters, new story, new worlds, but we'll have to wait and see. But there we have it then, guys. Are you looking forward to seeing Final Fantasy 16 potentially? And if so, what would you like to see in the next entry of the Final Fantasy franchise? Please do share your thoughts below. I think for me, I know it won't happen, because obviously Square have shown us they've moved away from this, but I would love it to go back to a more traditional take on the series, on the franchise, not only in terms of the characters and whatnot and the story and the setting, but in terms of the gameplay as well. I think Dragon Quest XI recently has shown that you can go back to that more traditional gameplay of JRPGs of old and still have a popular game that people love even in 2020. So maybe we could see something similar with Final Fantasy 16. That's what I would like. I didn't really like the combat and that in Final Fantasy 15. I heard that it's been improved for Final Fantasy 7 from those that have played the demo. But, something more traditional for Final Fantasy 16 I think would be great. But please do share your thoughts down in the comments, and I'll see you next time.